WEDI shower system Fundo Rialito with integrated linear drain can be used to safely install custom or standard shower sizes. The Rialito bases are available with traditional one-way slope design as shown in our video, or as four-way slope design with level perimeter for easy recessing into subfloor constructions for floor-level installations. The shower base always comes with a Rialito drain assembly consisting of two spacers used to align the floor tile with the linear channel once ready for tiling, an ABS trap for a cement glue connection to a 2-inch ABS floor pipe, a sealing gasket to connect shower base and ABS trap. First, the sealing gasket is aligned with the receptors on the underside of the base, right below the center of the linear channel. Then, use a WEDI screw to attach the sealing gasket. A large-sized Phillips screwdriver is used to make sure a tight fit is achieved without stripping the screw heads. The sealing gasket will be compression sealed against the receptor and will later serve to compression seal into the Rialito drain trap part connected to the subfloor and floor pipe. It's important that the subfloor, whether concrete or wood, is even, clean, load-bearing, and free of deflection exceeding industry standards. Please note the 2x4 blocks added in between the studs. This will help back the connection between WEDI Rialito base and WEDI wall building panel, especially if some studs are not 100% aligned with your squared framing. The WEDI drain box comes with a template so you can mark the recessed hole for the drain trap and cut a tight-fitting oval hole in the subfloor using a jigsaw or reciprocating saw. The WEDI drain trap and floor pipe are primed and ABS cement glue is applied. Make sure the floor pipe is cut 1 1/4 inches below the subfloor surface. Now connect the trap to the floor pipe and compress so the cement glue can bond. Regular WEDI assembly screws are used to fasten the drain trap to the wooden floor. If you work on a concrete floor, WEDI joint sealant is used to fix the trap into position. In this project, we will cut the Rialito base to length and make it fit in our planned custom shower size. A circular saw with a diamond or carbide blade is used to cut the base cleanly. A handsaw can be used alternatively or, as you can see here, to cut through the rest of the base if the circular saw blade is too short. It's important that the Z-notch channel is recreated using a circular saw. This channel will allow for a safe seal and connection between Rialito base and WEDI building panels on the wall, sealed together with WEDI joint sealant. It's a best practice to cut through the base's heavy-duty traffic cement coating using a circular saw. When cutting through foam only, a utility knife with a sharp blade works fast and safely. However, you can use the circular saw with a guide as shown here. Make sure your cut is made quickly so the blade will not melt the foam. When cutting channels into bases featuring four-way slopes, it's recommended to make the horizontal cut using a utility knife along a line parallel to the flat underside of the base so your channel has the appropriate and even depth. Once the channel is cut, remove all foam dust and particles. Next, the base will be installed using a cement-based modified thinset mortar. It's recommended to protect the drain trap so no thinset can drop into this part and could prohibit a safe seal while you are spreading thinset mortar. The protection is then removed. When installing WEDI bases to the floor, you may apply 1 3/8 inch to 1/2 inch bed of thinset mortar to the floor only using a notch trowel. To achieve great and instant adhesion and a consistent setting bed providing high coverage, it's helpful to additionally skim coat the underside of the shower base using the flat side of your trowel. Alternatively, you can use a 1/4 by 1/4 inch notch trowel and apply a full thinset mortar bed to the floor as well as on the underside of the base. In any case, it will be helpful to spread thinset flat into all surfaces before combing through the mortar using the notch side of the trowel. All trowel lines should point in one direction and toward an open area to allow for air to escape from between the mortar ridges once these collapse under pressure when the base is installed to the floor. Make sure all flat drain parts which come into contact with the floor or base are covered with mortar to avoid any hollow spots or areas with lack of adhesion in this connection and setting bed. The Rialito base is now laid into the mortar on the floor. Make sure no thinset mortar contaminates either the drain trap on the floor or the sealing gasket beneath the base. Push the Rialito sealing gasket fully into the trap so that the base is evenly laying on the floor and the thinset mortar fully compresses in all areas underneath the base. When doing this step, take care not to crack the drain trap or it will leak. It's important that the trap is exactly in position for the sealing gasket to drop into position as well. This is a tight fit and no tolerance is available. Walk and weigh out the Riolito base into the thinset mortar bed so air can escape from the setting bed. Next, apply some weights evenly distributed over the surface and drain area. Leave these weights in place for at least 30 to 60 minutes, but do not remove them before WEDI building panels are installed on at least 2 walls. They will help keep the shower base locked in place. Next, we're installing the 4x8 by 1/2 inch WEDI building panel. Dry fit the panel first and ensure a proper fit to the framed wall. Even though you can cut WEDI building panels easily and very clean to fit in perfectly tight, it's recommended to square out the framing rather than to trim and fit the WEDI building panel to problematic areas. If not addressed directly with the framing, all wall areas not square and plumb will show in your tile assembly later. Where WEDI building panels exceed the base area, notch the WEDI building panel so it can rest fully into the base channel as well as on the subfloor outside the base area. WEDI building panels are cut with just a utility knife and a T-square. You may score and snap cleanly or cut all the way through the panel. When scoring and snapping, cut through the bottom layer of WEDI's strong reinforcing mesh to remove the part. Detailed cuts can be done cleanly as shown here. This will help greatly when cutting out for plumbing parts later. All cutting can be done right where you install. There are no hazardous chemicals or gaseous contaminants set free when cutting WEDI products, and all dust can be removed with a broom. Please make sure not to breathe in any cement or foam dust and wear protective gear if you are sensitive to cement particles. Before WEDI building panels are installed into the Riolito base channel, a 1/2 inch bead of WEDI joint sealant is continuously applied in the channel. Here we use a 20-ounce unit of the WEDI engineered MS polymer sealant and WEDI sealant gun. The WEDI joint sealant is not only a strong and flexible adhesive to bond all assembly parts, but it is also a waterproofing sealant to last for decades without aging-related changes in performance in even submerged applications. Make sure to remove any thinset mortar or other contaminants from the channel before applying WEDI joint sealant. Now, install the first WEDI building panel and push it all the way to the bottom of the Riolito channel. Ideally, you will see sealant oozing out from the inside seam between base and panel. Use a level on the first board to make sure it's installed evenly fitting the channel. Spread all excess sealant flat using a putty knife. WEDI tab washers are now installed with WEDI screws, either wood screws or steel stud screws, starting in the corner of the framing and approximately 1 foot above the base surface. The bottom row of washers and screws is installed first while pushing the panel into the sealant and the channel. This first row of washers and screws will lock the building panel into the sealant under compression. All other tab washers are now installed 1 per every 12 inches on every stud. In the upper area, fasteners are installed right into the transition seam to the next WEDI building panel, creating a flush transition between 2 panels. The tab washers are dimpled slightly below the flush surface of the panel. Do not worry about affecting the cement-based resin coating of the WEDI building panel. It provides excellent bond and strength, but the waterproofing is provided by WEDI's closed-cell XPS foam core. When the next WEDI building panel is installed, apply a 1/2 inch bead of WEDI joint sealant along the blue edge of the panel below. This will create adhesion and waterproofing between the 2 panels. Install the next WEDI building panel and fasten to the framing. WEDI panels can be installed with either side, printed logo side or unprinted side showing. Spread all excess sealant flat over the seam between panels. Keep all unused sealant and use it to cover and waterproof the WEDI fastener points. Make sure to tool the excess sealant quickly, as it will start to show a topical cure after about 15 minutes, and faster still if hot temperatures and high humidity are present, as the sealant uses moisture to cure. Next, we're installing the sidewall. To join the WEDI building panel here, a continuous 1/2 inch bead of WEDI joint sealant is applied up along the corner end of the panel to the other side. Another 1/2 inch bead of WEDI joint sealant is continuously applied in the channel of the Riolito base. You can see here, we protected the drain opening again so no debris may drop into the drain during installation. Cutouts for plumbing should be made as tight as possible, as such holes in your waterproofing present a risk of water running behind your tile and exiting through such cutouts. Please use WEDI sealing collars when starting to set tile to protect these cutouts properly. Now, one of WEDI's practical soap niches, available in multiple sizes, is installed and recessed into the framing once WEDI building panel is cut out to allow for the niche to fit in halfway onto the left and right stud. The WEDI niches are made of the strong WEDI building panel in 1/2 inch thickness to allow for good handling and safe installation. The perimeter flanges allow for their attachment to the framing, a safe waterproof integration, and a flush transition from niche to wall. Finally, a surface bead of WEDI joint sealant is spread flat over the niche to wall transitions once washers and fasteners are put back into place, also supporting a flush transition. This will not only increase the strength and consistency of the seam waterproofing, but also reinforce the seams. The installation of shelving units proceeds with WEDI joint sealant, and shelves can be installed with a minimal pitch towards the shower so water may run off easily. A WEDI curb made of a solid closed cell foam core is now installed. The WEDI curbs come in various lengths and dimensions: 3, 5, and 8 feet long and 4.5 inches wide by 5 inches tall. They can be cut to other designs. When cutting the curbs, please make sure to keep the top surface, which is pitched towards the inside of the shower, so water will not escape over the curb surface. Or you may choose WEDI's lean curb version, a 2-inch wide and 3.5 inch tall curb. Here we are using a 4.5 by 5 inch curb and mitering 2 curbs together to properly shape the 2-sided curb design. It's important, as with all parts of a WEDI assembly, that the curbs are cut to fit together tightly, leaving no space in between. Once measured, the curbs are cut cleanly with a handsaw and a speed square before their dry fit. Thinset mortar is now applied and troweled onto the floor in the same thickness as we used for the installation of the Realito base. You may again choose to back butter the curb to the floor or apply only a skim coat on the curb for instant adhesion. Now WEDI joint sealant is continuously applied along all areas on the Realito base which connects to the curb. Where curbs connect to a WEDI building panel on the wall, WEDI joint sealant is applied to the wall, addressing the entire connection area. The curbs are now tightly moved into the thinset setting bed and sealant. Pressure is applied and both curb parts are sealed together where they meet at the corner. Once the curbs are in place, excess thinset is flat troweled against the bottom of the curbs, pushing extra thinset support under the curb to provide a very solid setting bed. All thinset not needed is removed and weights are placed to keep the curbs under compression until the sealant has sufficiently cured to provide strong adhesion. To finalize proper waterproofing and strong seam reinforcement, a second half-inch bead of WEDI joint sealant is topically applied over all seams in the entire assembly and troweled flat using a WEDI corner putty knife or a regular flat putty knife. All seams should be covered with 1.5 to 2 inches of solid joint sealant centered over the seam. Make sure the joint sealant coverage is solid and uniform, but also flat, leaving no areas of buildup, as these will bother you when setting tile. Excess joint sealant can be used to now waterproof all fastener points properly. The coverage of joint sealant should be sufficient to cover all visible metal and reach over the edges of washers by at least 1/2 inch. We're now installing one of the 3 drain covers available for Fundo Rialito. It's important that the cover will be adjusted to match the tile surface or sit slightly below the tile surface. A dry fit of the tile plus the thickness of a compressed thinset mortar bed under the tile will be the height we are considering here. The drain covers are supported by metal and plastic combination column supports, which are assembled with a few steps before they snap into the drain cover, which can then be inserted into the column receivers in the linear base channel as shown here. The drain cover columns are now reduced and cut to the size we need for our tile's final installation height. To cut the column support safely and exactly, we take only the threaded part of the column support assembly and screw it onto the channel spacers as shown here. The spacer is now just used as a helpful device to allow for a good cut using a fine-toothed plastic or metal handsaw. Cut the threaded component to length as required and clean scrap plastic off the part. Repeat this process for all other column supports and assemble them again. Here we're installing WEDI's exclusive drain cover, a double-plated and brushed stainless steel. As you can see here, WEDI also offers a standard cover made of polished stainless steel as well as a tileable cover. The exclusive and standard covers are installed following the same process. Should you decide to install the tileable cover, the column supports are installed in a slightly different manner as shown here and in the written installation instructions in your cover box. The process of cutting the column supports to length required is the same for all drain cover types. Instead of snapping into the underside of the drain cover, the column supports for a tileable drain cover are fastened to the cover itself. All WEDI Rialito covers can be easily removed for cleaning of the channel or the drain itself. Within a few hours, we have now installed an entire linear shower from base to ceiling and we're ready for tiling. Not only is your entire shower substrate for floor and wall waterproof, but your drain is completely integrated into a safe assembly, ultimately protecting your entire waterproof shower construction under WEDI's system warranty. You may use any tile or stone in any size, thickness, or format over WEDI shower systems. The installation can be done using any cement-based thinset mortar. On the floor tiles smaller than 2 by 2 inches, they require an epoxy grout joint. Larger tiles on the floor can be used on single-slope WEDI Riolito and over 4-way slope Riolitos if grout lines or relief cuts are made to go along with the 4 WEDI slope lines.